My business partner filed a lawsuit claiming he invented our product. In court, he presented prototypes with his name. I waited and presented the original patent application with my name alone. His lawyer's confidence crumbled. Alright, so this is the story of how my business partner, Mike, tried to steal everything from me, my idea, my company, my future. He thought he had me backed into a corner. He thought he was going to walk into court and walk out rich. But what he didn't know. I had receipts. This is how I tore his case apart piece by piece. How it started: I met Mike in college. We weren't best friends or anything, but we got along. We were both mechanical engineering majors, had a few classes together, and ran in similar circles. He was more of a talker, loud, always networking, always had some scheme he was working on. I was the opposite. I liked building things. I liked solving problems. A few years after college, I came up with something. A portable water purification system, small, lightweight, solar-powered, designed for disaster relief zones. It wasn't just an idea. I built it. I spent months designing the prototype, testing it, improving it. It worked. I was looking for investors when Mike reached out. He said he wanted in. Said he had contacts, could handle marketing and sales while I focused on the engineering side. I was hesitant at first. Mike wasn't exactly known for follow-through, but he convinced me. Worst mistake of my life. With Mike handling investors and partnerships, things actually took off. We secured funding. We got attention from NGOs. People wanted this product. We built a team, set up production, and launched. And then, right when things were starting to get big, right when we were on the verge of something huge, I got served. A lawsuit. Mike was suing me. And not just suing me, he was claiming he was the sole inventor of the purification system. I had to read it twice. 3 times. I thought it was a joke. Nope. According to him, he designed it. He built the prototypes. I was just the guy helping with the technical stuff. I wanted to believe this was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe his lawyers exaggerated. Maybe he didn't actually think he could just take everything. Then I saw the evidence he submitted. Prototypes. Designs. Documents. All with his name on them. And that's when I realized, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a setup. The fake evidence. Mike had gone all out. He had forged prototypes, claiming they were earlier versions of our product. He had filed patents in his name alone, claiming he had been working on this for years before I ever came into the picture. He even submitted emails. Emails where I supposedly acknowledged that this was his vision and that I was just bringing it to life. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The sheer audacity of it. We were supposed to be business partners. And he was willing to lie under oath to steal everything. I called my lawyer. He took one look at the case and said, "He's lying. But you're going to have to prove it." So I got to work. Building my case. I started digging through everything. Emails. Text messages. Meeting notes. Design files. Old prototypes. Anything that proved I was the one who had built this from the ground up. And let me tell you, Mike. He was a terrible liar. I found emails from before we even went into business together, where I sent him fully developed prototypes asking for feedback. I found messages where he admitted he didn't understand the tech. I found contracts where we had agreed that I owned the intellectual property. And then I found the patent application. Filed 3 years before Mike even joined the company. With my name alone on it. That was the moment I knew. He was done. But I wasn't just going to win this case. I was going to crush him. Court day. Mike walked into that courtroom like he already won. His lawyer was smug, cracking jokes, shaking hands. You could tell they thought this was going to be easy. I sat there and watched as they presented their case. The judge nodded along as they went through the so-called evidence. The forged prototypes. The original designs. The emails that had obviously been edited. It was infuriating. Mike sat there, acting like some misunderstood genius who had been robbed of his invention. His lawyer stood in front of the judge and said, "Your Honor, Mr. Callahan is the true inventor of this technology. The evidence speaks for itself." And for a second, just a second, I saw the judge actually consider it. That's when I stood up. "My turn," I said. The moment everything changed. I walked up to the front and handed the judge a certified copy of my original patent application. Filed years before Mike was ever involved. With my name. And only my name. The judge flipped through it, slowly, taking his time. Mike's lawyer leaned forward, trying to see the pages. His expression changed. Then I pulled out the emails. Hundreds of them. Messages where Mike had no idea how the system worked. Messages where he literally said, "I don't know how any of this technical stuff works, but I can sell it." Then I showed texts where he begged me to bring him into the company after I had already built everything. And then, for the final nail in the coffin, I pulled out the contract he signed. The one where he explicitly agreed that I owned the intellectual property. Dead silence. The judge turned to Mike's lawyer. "Do you have anything to say?" His lawyer just sat there. Staring. Then Mike did the dumbest thing imaginable. He snapped. "You wouldn't have done anything without me," he shouted. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Mike kept going. He stood up, pointing at me, ranting. "I'm the reason he even has a company. I brought in the investors. I made the deals. He's nothing without me." And that was it. The judge took a deep breath. Then he looked at Mike's lawyer and said, "You might want to advise your client to stop talking." What happened next? I'll tell you what happened. Mike's entire case fell apart in seconds. His lawyer tried to backtrack. Tried to argue. But it was over. And then the judge said something that made my whole year. "I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for possible fraud charges." I wish I could describe the look on Mike's face. But trust me. It was beautiful. Mike looked like he had been punched in the gut. His lawyer was frantically whispering to him, but he just sat there, frozen. The judge had just said the words, "fraud charges," and reality was finally hitting him. But here's the thing, this wasn't over. Not even close. Mike might have lost that day in court, but he wasn't the kind of guy who accepted defeat. He was the kind of guy who lashed out. And that's exactly what he did. The first sign of trouble. The night after the court hearing, I got a call from my lawyer. "You need to be careful," he said. "Mike is pissed." Apparently, after the hearing, Mike stormed out of the courthouse screaming about how he was going to ruin me. He told anyone who would listen that I had lied, that I had cheated him, that I had stolen the company from him. I wasn't too worried at first. Mike had already been exposed as a liar in court. Who would believe him now? Then I woke up the next morning and saw my name in the news. Tech CEO accused of intellectual property theft, engineer stole business partner's idea, lawsuit claims, the dark side of startup culture. I felt sick. Mike had gone to the press. And worse. He was winning the PR war. The lies spread like fire. Mike started spinning the story his way. He painted himself as the victim, a hardworking entrepreneur who had been backstabbed by his greedy business partner. He gave interviews. He posted on social media. He wrote long, dramatic posts about how he had trusted the wrong person. And the worst part? People believed him. Not everyone, of course. But enough. Investors started calling me nervous. Partners started backing away. I had spent years building my reputation. And in just a few days, Mike had set it on fire. I wanted to go to war. I wanted to call him out, go on the news, post every single piece of evidence I had. But my lawyer told me one thing, stay quiet. The trap was already set. Let him dig his own grave, my lawyer said. And damn, did Mike dig deep. Because here's the thing about compulsive liars, they don't know when to stop. Mike kept pushing. He didn't just tell his version of events, he embellished it. He made up new lies. Bigger lies. He said I had stolen company money. That I had bribed the judge. That I had hacked his emails to delete the real evidence. And then, the best part, he went after my team. He started contacting my employees. Told them I was a fraud, that I was going to lose everything, that they should jump ship before it was too late. Some of them actually quit. And that's when I realized, Mike didn't just want revenge. He wanted to destroy me. Then the FBI got involved. Mike got so cocky, so desperate, that he made a huge mistake. He faked more documents. And he didn't just use them in court, he sent them to investors. To journalists. To government agencies. One of those agencies. The United States Patent and Trademark Office. And let me tell you, they don't take kindly to fraud. One day, I got a call from an FBI agent. He asked if I was willing to cooperate in an investigation. I didn't even hesitate. Absolutely, I said. And that's when I knew Mike had officially screwed himself. The investigation begins. It turns out, Mike had done way more than just try to steal my company. He had been doctoring documents for years. The prototypes he had presented in court. Fake. The patents he claimed he had filed before me. Backdated. The emails he used as proof. Fabricated. And he had lied on legal filings. Which, in case you didn't know, is a federal crime. The Fed started digging. And the more they found, the worse it got. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get crazier, I got a phone call. From Mike's lawyer. He wants to talk. His lawyer sounded nervous. Mike wants to make a deal, he said. A deal? After everything he had done? After he had tried to destroy my reputation? After he had literally faked evidence? I didn't say a word. I just laughed. Because now, I was the one holding all the cards. I wasn't expecting a call from Mike's lawyer. Not after everything. Not after he had burned every bridge and then set fire to the ashes. But there I was, sitting in my office, listening to his nervous voice over the phone. Mike wants to make a deal. I almost laughed. A deal? Mike had spent months dragging my name through the dirt. He had tried to steal my company, ruin my reputation, destroy my career. He had committed fraud in court, faked documents, lied to investors, and now that the FBI was sniffing around, suddenly he wanted to talk. No chance. I don't negotiate with liars, I said. There was a long pause. Then his lawyer sighed. Look, I'm going to be real with you. Mike's in trouble. Serious trouble. If you push this all the way, he's looking at jail time. He's willing to drop the lawsuit, retract everything, and walk away. But he needs you to agree to drop any claims against him. That's when it hit me. Mike was scared. Good. Because I wasn't done yet. The accident. I was ready to tell Mike's lawyer to go to hell, but before I could, something happened. Something I never saw coming. One night, I was leaving my office late. I had been working non-stop, making sure my business could survive all the damage Mike had done. I was exhausted. The parking lot was mostly empty. And then, out of nowhere, a car came speeding straight at me. I barely had time to react. I jumped out of the way, hit the pavement hard, and the car screeched off into the night. For a second, I just lay there, gasping, my heart hammering in my chest. That wasn't an accident. Someone had just tried to hit me. Was it Mike? I didn't want to believe it. Even after everything, I didn't think Mike was that kind of person. But then I started thinking. Mike was desperate. Mike was backed into a corner. And a guy like Mike. A guy who had lied and cheated his whole life. I didn't think he was smart enough to plan something like this. But I did think he was stupid enough to hire someone who was. I called my lawyer. He told me to file a police report immediately. And then I got another phone call. From a blocked number. I picked up. Silence. Then, a voice. Low. Almost a whisper. Drop the case. Click. This just got personal. I wasn't scared. I was angry. Mike had already taken so much from me, my time, my reputation, my employees. Now he was trying to scare me. Big mistake. I went straight to the FBI. I told them everything. The fraud, the backdated patents, the faked emails, and now, the attempted hit and run. And that's when they told me something that made my blood run cold. We've been looking into Mike's financials, the agent said. Did you know he took out a large sum of money in cash 2 weeks ago? I felt a chill go down my spine. No. I did not know that. And I was starting to think I had underestimated just how far Mike was willing to go. The other betrayal. I thought I knew what kind of person Mike was. A liar? Yes. A thief? Absolutely. A dangerous man? I wasn't sure. Until I got an email that changed everything. It was from an anonymous account, and all it said was, check your board of directors. I frowned. What the hell did that mean? I started digging. And then I found it. Mike wasn't working alone. He had someone on the inside. Someone at my own company. The mole inside my business. I went through months of company emails, Slack messages, financial reports. And that's when I saw the patterns. Somehow, Mike always knew things he shouldn't have known. Investor meetings. Strategy changes. Legal defenses. He shouldn't have had access to any of it. And yet, he did. And then I found the name. Someone who had been with me since the beginning. Someone I trusted. My CFO. The same CFO who had convinced me to bring Mike on board in the first place. The same CFO who had been urging me to settle. The same CFO who had been quietly moving money around in ways that didn't make sense. I stared at the screen, my hands clenched into fists. Mike wasn't just trying to steal my company. He had been planning this from the start. I wasn't just fighting Mike anymore. I was fighting a conspiracy. My own company had been compromised. Mike had inside help. And someone had just tried to kill me. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. This was personal. And I was about to burn them all to the ground. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my desk, staring at the name on my screen. Daniel, my CFO. A man I had trusted for years. A man I had shared late nights, hard decisions, and victories with. A man I had thought was on my side. And he had been working with Mike this whole time. The pieces fell into place. The weird financial transactions. The way Mike always seemed to know our moves. The way Daniel had pushed for a settlement instead of fighting. I wanted to punch something. Instead, I picked up my phone. James, I said to my lawyer, my voice deadly calm. I need you to set up a board meeting. Immediately. It was time for a reckoning. The next afternoon, I walked into the boardroom, my heart pounding. Every major stakeholder was there, investors, advisors, senior executives. And at the far end of the table, Daniel. He gave me a tight smile, like he had no idea why we were here. All right, he said, flipping through some papers. Let's get to it. We have some serious. I cut him off. Tell me, Daniel, I said, leaning forward, my voice ice cold. How much did Mike pay you? The room fell silent. Daniel froze. Then he laughed. A short, nervous chuckle. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. I pulled out a folder and tossed it onto the table. Inside. Bank statements. Emails. Text messages. And my personal favorite, a signed agreement between Daniel and Mike, outlining his cut of the company once they forced me out. For a long time, nobody said anything. Then one of the investors, an older guy named Patel, spoke. Daniel, is this real? Daniel's face went pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Then he did what cowards do best. He lied. This is a setup, he said, shaking his head. Mike must have faked these documents too. I pulled out my phone and hit play. A recording. Daniel's voice. Once we get rid of him, the board will have no choice but to replace him. Mike already promised me 10%. The color drained from his face. A few people gasped. One of the investors stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. You were going to betray all of us, she said, voice shaking. Not just him. All of us. Daniel panicked. You have no idea what he's done, he shouted, pointing at me. He's been controlling everything. Nobody was listening. Security came in and escorted him out. And just like that, he was gone. But this wasn't over. Because Mike still had to pay. While the board dealt with Daniel, I had one last move to make. I told my lawyer, let Mike think he's won. So I sent a message to Mike's lawyer. Fine. I'll settle. He took the bait immediately. Mike was so desperate to get out of this mess, he agreed to meet in person to finalize the deal. And that's exactly what I wanted. The meeting was set at a fancy law office in downtown Chicago. I arrived first, my lawyer by my side. Mike walked in 10 minutes late, acting like he still had the upper hand. He smirked when he saw me. Well, he said, sitting down across from me. I knew you'd come around. I didn't say a word. He leaned back in his chair, cocky as ever. You dragged this out for no reason. We could have saved a lot of time if you had just accepted that I was the real. That's when the FBI walked in. Mike's smirk vanished. 2 agents stepped forward, one of them pulling out a badge. Michael Callahan, you're under arrest for fraud, perjury, and falsifying legal documents. His face went white. What? No, 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 you don't understand, they cuffed him. His lawyer was losing his mind, flipping through papers, stammering. Mike turned to me, wild-eyed. You did this. I tilted my head. Yeah. I did. And then I smiled. Because he knew I had one. Mike was done. The fraud case. Ironclad. His faked patents. All exposed. The attempted hit and run. Turns out, he had hired a guy who flipped on him immediately. He was looking at years in prison. And my company? It survived. It took time to rebuild trust, but my investors backed me. My employees came back. The board stood by me. And Daniel? He disappeared. Probably working some mediocre job, far away from tech. I still think about it sometimes. About how close I came to losing everything. About how someone I trusted was willing to destroy me. But in the end, I won. And Mike? He got exactly what he deserved.